Welcome to another episode of Touring the AFC South. I am your host, Mike Patton, and on this episode, we will be talking the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, of course, they had a pretty interesting offseason in terms of free agency, and the draft is going to be quite an interesting one as well. And to kind of go over those different things with me today, I brought on someone that definitely keeps an eye on the Jacksonville Jaguars. You're from down in that area, if I'm not mistaken. That would be Jacksonville.com, the Florida Times Union, Mr. Demetrius Harvey. What's going on, man?
Nothing much. How you doing?
Doing great. Trying to stay dry. It's kind of raining out here. But, yeah. But other than that, hey, doing great. But, yeah, wanted to kind of get into the Jacksonville Jaguars. We're going to get into the Jacksonville Jaguars. But first, we've got the Get Off Your Chest segment. And on this episode, I want to talk about the rumors. No, I'm not talking about the song from back in the day. I know I'm pretty sure everyone heard that. Look at all these rumors. No, I'm not going to sing. I'm not singing. But anyway, all the rumors about the NFL draft. You have rumors about players being this short, players being this tall, players not being, engaged, players' mental capacity, things like that. And a lot of that has come around this week about Malik Neighbors. I just find it quite interesting when, it leads up to the draft that all these things come about and that people start to believe and feed into these things. What you also have to understand is teams are playing chess matches as well. So some of these things may have been put out there for a particular team, particular person, a particular agent, who knows? But some of these things have been put out there to kind of throw people off the track or kind of make people think, hey, we're not going to take this guy, but we are going to take this guy. Let's let him fall so we don't have to pay him as much. We don't have to give him as much. And we can get him where we want him. So, that's one reason. Another reason is you got the CJ Stroud story. Now, of course, everyone talks about the test he took and how he didn't do so well on it. And they didn't know if he was going to be an NFL quarterback. That went along with a black quarterback that didn't run, which, some people had an issue with, which I thought was crazy. And then also the weapons that he threw to, like Marvin Harrison Jr., who's in this draft, Chris Olave, who was in last year's draft, and all those different weapons that he had, and all those different things are trying to knock CJ Stroud down, but all he did was go out there and be the offensive rookie of the year and lead the Houston Texans to the playoffs and a wild card win. So when you're looking at all these different things, hearing all these different things about these different players, I want you to keep one thing in mind. Not all of what you hear is true. Because there's always someone trying to pull some strings behind the scenes. You got anything you want to add, Demetrius?
Yeah, I mean, this kind of stuff happens every year, it feels like. And just like you said, it happened with CJ Stroud. It's happened before. And so it's not surprising. This comes out a few weeks before the draft. All of a sudden, Malik Neighbors is seen as high maintenance or whatever. What does that even mean, first of all? And then
Right.
second of all, how much you should take into something like that is probably zero. I mean, you don't know. I don't know Malik Neighbors. I don't know about you. The person Tony Pauline for Sportskeeda who reported it. I doubt he knows him very well. And so, it's one of those things where you have to think about the levels of communication. This has come from somebody up here who we have no idea his relationship with Malik. He might hate the guy, and then he tells the reporter, and the reporter tells us, and then we're supposed to believe it. So basically, like Mike said, just take everything with a grain of salt. I don't think you can really trust or believe any of this. Just look at his body of work, look at what he does in the NFL. If it turns out that he is lazy or is whatever is that, we'll find out eventually. So there's no point in even doing this. A lot of this stuff, I think, is just to move guys down a peg on the board. I think you're right. People will put that stuff out, and all of a sudden Neighbors falls to 10, and then the team takes them. That happens all the time. So hopefully for his sake, it doesn't make him fall at all. I don't think it will. But yeah, it's one of those things where we're going to hear these rumors all the time, especially with it being only a couple weeks left.
Right. It'll be interesting. It's only going to pick up. But speaking of picking up, of course, rumors and things like that, that's what happened in the Jacksonville Jaguars free agency. And of course, we're going to talk about that. The first thing we want to talk about is Calvin Ridley. Now, in this whole story and saga, there were supposedly two teams. Now, the first team was the New England Patriots was the team trying to pry him away from Jacksonville. And The funny part I find about this story is they kept, he didn't want to go there, but they kept throwing more money. And I'm like, okay, if someone doesn't want to go there, they just don't want to go there. It just is what it is. So that was one team involved. And of course, the Jacksonville Jaguars were involved, and they were, he wanted to stay there, and that was all the talk that was out there. And then there was a third team that pops up with an offer. And then when you heard the offer and you heard what Jacksonville had to offer, which is no state tax and the amount of money and just the offer that was thrown at him, I guess from a mystery third team, I knew immediately once I heard that, I was like, that's got to be the Titans. That's got to be the Titans. Because I was like, well, the Texans, I couldn't see them going there. I could see the Titans going there. And sure enough, what happens? Pops up, boom, he signs with the Titans. And of course, fire and brimstone comes from some Jacksonville Jaguars fans, like, "Hey, well, he wasn't that good anyway." Or I was like, "Stop it! No, you wanted this man back. Stop it." So, what did you think about that? Just that entire process, and just the kind of the reaction when he signed with the Titans as opposed to staying with the Jaguars.
Yeah, it was weird. It was a saga. It was one of those things where I think I kind of operated under the assumption that he would be back in Jacksonville, just because of I knew how strongly the team felt about Calvin. I knew how strongly Calvin felt about wanting to be in Jacksonville. I just didn't know necessarily how much they were willing to offer. But as we got closer, I thought that it was for sure going to be Jacksonville because they were the only team in it, along with the Patriots, obviously, all the way to the end. They all the way until 4 p.m. on that Wednesday, and maybe a little bit before. I'm not sure exactly when the Titans started talking, but right before the new league year pops off, you all of a sudden you hear a rumor about here's a third team, and I was actually thinking that maybe Houston, because Texas no state income tax as well. I knew that they wanted to get another receiver to go with C.J. Stroud. It turns out being Stephon Diggs instead of Calvin Ridley, but I thought maybe that was a potential option, but I guess they just weren't willing to necessarily go that long term with him. But Tennessee, yeah, they came out of nowhere. I did not expect it. I hadn't heard their name the entire time. I didn't think that was going to happen. I don't think that Calvin knew that was going to happen based on his reactions, afterward, and based on Rand Carthon's reactions too. He was saying that basically, Calvin was a pipe dream, and they sort of lost out on a couple guys, and then they circled back. And that takes away a lot from Jacksonville's offense. And I know that Calvin didn't have necessarily the perfect season for Jacksonville, but the reason why he was so coveted by the fans and everybody else, at least before he signed with Tennessee, was because he was able to do things that we haven't seen necessarily a Jaguars wide receiver do. He was able to take the top off the defense. He was able to run some of the gnarliest routes, man, like crazy routes that guy was able to run. Even in practice, he looked like the best guy out there. And so, they're going to be losing a lot. They're going to be losing at least, I know he only had, I think, 1,100 yards or maybe a little under that last year, but he could have had at least 1,500 yards just based on pass interferences he drew and all that other stuff. So they're losing out on a 1,000-yard wide receiver, and they're going to have to replace him.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Well, one guy they're actually going to use to try to replace him would be Gabriel Davis. Now, the plan was to have Gabriel Davis and kind of move him around, things like that. However, with Calvin Ridley gone, Gabriel Davis now comes front and center. And, of course, everyone will talk about Christian Kirk and him coming back and him, being their number one. How important is it to you, or how big of a haul was it for them to get Gabriel Davis? And then secondly, does it worry you the inconsistencies that he had in Buffalo over his career there?
Yeah. So the first part, I thought that, it was a pretty decent signing. I think he signed for $13 million a year, 3 years, $39 million, something like that.
I got it right here. It's 3 years, $39 million with $11 million signing bonus and $24 million guaranteed.
Yeah, that's not too bad. $8 million a year, basically guaranteed. 24 over 2 years. I thought that signing made sense. I thought that they needed a guy because Zay Jones got hurt last year. He's been inconsistent. I thought that they knew that they needed to sort of upgrade that position because, Zay's probably not going to be here beyond this season regardless. He might not be here after the draft. It depends on what they do. So, they needed to go out there and fill that role. And then they wanted to have Calvin Ridley opposite of him, as you said. And they just, it seems like their plan right now is sort of just to utilize Gabe in that Zay Jones role, utilize Christian Kirk inside still, and then I guess Zay now takes over where Calvin was. I still think that they're going to have to address that position in the future, but I do think that what Gabe brings to the table is somebody who can take the top off the defense, not necessarily with speed, but with his big body, big play ability, a person who can run a good route downfield, basically. And so, I think that works. And the concerns, I definitely have some concerns. There's a reason why for years Bills fans and Buffalo media have been pushing them to sort of sign a wide receiver 2 during that time. And, Stephon Diggs is their wide receiver 1. And Gabe Davis was supposed to be their wide receiver 2, but they still were saying, they need a second guy. And so by judging that, I just felt like, he's a guy that definitely is inconsistent, doesn't catch the 50-50 balls as much as you would hope, doesn't run the most diverse route tree. So, yeah, there's a lot of concerns, but I do know that he has a big playability. He's a guy that can become a quarterback's best friend if you need him. He did that a lot with Josh Allen. And so, I think that there's some pluses and minuses, but overall a pretty decent signing for them as long as they continue to upgrade the position.
Gotcha. It'll be interesting just to see what happens there at that position, especially with the Jaguars, and whether they believe in some of the young players they have or if they go get some people in the draft. Now, this wide receiver draft is pretty deep, so there's a bevy of talents to actually pick from. Now, speaking of, I want to kind of, dive a little bit more into the offense. Another addition from Buffalo was center Mitch Morse. Now, he actually was let go from Buffalo. Of course, Buffalo let go of everybody this offseason, what it seems like. So, in adding him at the center spot, now I believe it's 2 years, $10.5 million with a $4 million signing bonus and $7 million guaranteed. So, what does the veteran add to the center of that offense? No pun intended, but the center of that offense to actually kind of elevate them going forward.
Yeah, he adds a lot. Yeah, it's not only that veteran presence that you talk about, but he also is a guy who has played a lot. He's been successful in his career. Has had concussion issues, but other than that, has been pretty healthy throughout his career. And so I think what they wanted was a stable player there. Last year, they had Luke Fortner, who was a second-year player. They had drafted him the year before in the third round, at the top of the third round. And he had started, 34 straight games plus 2 postseason games. So it's not like he doesn't have any experience. He just struggled mightily. I think that he's the guy that fans for a while now have been blaming basically for most of the offensive line issues. I don't think it's necessarily the case. It's all on him, but I get the concerns and the criticisms of Luke Fortner just because he's been a guy who should be better than he is right now. He's not as strong as he should be. He doesn't consistently block, especially in the run game. So they brought in Mitch Morse to sort of not only potentially replace him, because they haven't said necessarily that he's starting yet. It seems like he will be based on the contract. But he's a guy that can also push Luke Fortner. I think that's what the Jaguars are looking for. They're looking for a guy who can come in and sort of be that experienced veteran who can actually help Luke out in competition and things like that. They hadn't had that before. So yeah, I think that he brings a lot to the center of the offense. I think that they needed it. Is it done? No, but it's a solid start.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting just to see what he does. And of course, the last offensive addition that I do want to talk about is a gentleman that's coming back home that used to play in Jacksonville in high school, went away to Alabama, then got drafted by the New England Patriots. Yes, you're right. That's McCorkle Jones. McCorkle Jones is, the backup quarterback, or in a battle for the backup quarterback position for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Of course, the Jacksonville Jaguars traded for him this offseason, not really giving up a ton for him. What did you think of this addition
when it happened. Yeah. My immediate thoughts were, okay, they wanted a better veteran, or they wanted a better backup quarterback. And honestly, my first reaction was, is that much of a upgrade from CJ Beathard just based on his body of work the last couple of years? I understand his situation, but Mac Jones has always been a quarterback to me that was pretty average, and they did a really good job his rookie year, just basically giving him very simple things to work with, and then they did a horrible job his second year by giving him a defensive coordinator as an offensive coordinator. So, yeah, I understand his struggles, and so I thought it was an interesting move for both sides. You know, for Mac, it's a great opportunity to come back home, fresh start, and for the Jaguars, they're going to have a veteran backup that they feel can, you know, adequately go in there and sort of do something if Trevor Lawrence goes down, which he did last year. So it makes sense in the grand scheme of things. Trading a 6-round pick, you know, 6-round picks can be thrown away most of the time. But, you know, sometimes you do find that gem. So it's definitely a gamble to sort of go out there and say, hey, we don't need to draft a quarterback late. We can just get this guy for a year and see how it goes. My only concern is, you know, how will this be a long-term backup? Because I'm sure Max still wants to start, right? You know, he's only however old, 26 maybe years old. You know, so he's a guy that's going to want to start again in this league. So I just have a hard time seeing him necessarily re-signing with the team. So it just feels like a one-year rental, but I do like the upgrade as a backup quarterback. Somebody who's probably more stable than CJ Beathard, or at least has more untapped potentially.
Well, potential. It can definitely get you in trouble. It can definitely make dreams happen as well. And you know, McCorkle, it'll be interesting just to see how he does. Yeah, I call him McCorkle because
I love that.
Well, he was Mac Jones when he got into the league, but I kind of downgraded him to McCorkle now at this point. If he earns back the Mac, I'll give him the Mac back. But you know, I'm gonna call him McCorkle at this point. You know, that's not trying to, you know, poke fun, but I'm just saying, hey.
It's understandable. McCourt, he has to earn that Mac back. No, I get it. Return of the Mac can't come until he figures it out.
Hey, there we go. One of my favorite one-hit wonders, Mark Morrison. There we go. Now, I want to ask, you know, I'm just going to ask this one question, and then we'll take a commercial break. Do you expect the Jaguars to actually – do you think he makes the roster to start the year?
Yeah, he'll make it. He'll make it because he's guaranteed that contract. So you might as well carry it on. I think it's like $2.5 million. So he's not going to get his 5th-year option picked up, but he'll make the roster. I think they traded for him unless he bombs it, unless he just completely just looks horrible. I just can't see him not making it.
Gotcha. Well, we'll see what happens with McCorkle Jones and the of course the offensive additions for the Jacksonville Jaguars. But we're kind of flip over to the defense. But before we do that, of course, we do have to take a quick commercial break. Of course, want to acknowledge the Touring the AFC South inbox. We had the Barbershop Sports Talk podcast stop through, and they said, "What up there, everybody?" So what's going on, man? But yeah, Barbershop Sports Talk podcast. If you haven't watched that, you got Maestro, you got Trey. They're doing their thing, talking sports, giving it to you real and raw. Check them out. Definitely during the week. But we're going to take a quick commercial break. And when we come back, like I mentioned, we're going to talk a little defense for the Jacksonville Jaguars on Touring the AFC South.
EBO Beard Butter and EBO Beard Wash are two of the best beard grooming products for men worldwide. They help promote growth, keep your beard moisturized and soft, and enhance your overall upkeep of your facial hair. And with the new promo code MPAFC10, you can get 10% off all these products. Just go to www.etsy.com/shop/EBO Beard Butter. Again, that's www.etsy.com/shop/EBO Beard Butter. And again, the promo code MPAFC10. Again, MPAFC10, where you can get 10% off any products except for beard boxes. So treat your beard better today by going to get this EBO Beard Butter and EBO Beard Wash.
All right. right, and we are back on Touring the AFC South. Thank you to our sponsor, EBO Beard Butter. Man, ever since I've been using that product, man, made my beard nice and soft. And, of course, definitely something great to use, healthy to use, man. You ought to get you some, Demetrius.
I appreciate it. I might have to.
All right. Yeah, tell them I sent you. Of course, the code will tell them anyway. But anyway, all right. Like I mentioned before the commercial break, we're going to switch over to the defensive side of the ball. And the biggest addition this offseason for the Jacksonville Jaguars, Eric Armstead. 3 years, $43 million with $28 million in guarantees. Now, of course, Houston was in the running. They were trying to trade for him. They did not get him. I'm sure that a lot of AFC South teams are breathing a sigh of relief that they did not get him.
Yeah.
Like they got everyone else. But
like Autry and everything, yep.
Right. But what does that addition of Eric Armstead in the middle of that defense do for the Jacksonville Jaguars?
It does everything. I thought that he was the kingpin of the free agency class. I thought that was a guy that they had to get because he was just a player that fit perfectly. First of all, he's a Trent Baalke pick already. He was drafted by Trent Baalke in 2015 when Trent was with the 49ers. And so he knew a lot about him, obviously. And I think that, with a new defensive coordinator, I know they have Josh Allen, but you want another guy, especially on that defensive line, that's just a dominating force, especially inside. You last year with the Falcons, they brought in Calais Campbell. I view it kind of similarly, where Calais can play multiple positions. He thrived, had 6.5 sacks, one of his best seasons of his career, actually, at age like 38 or whatever he is now. And so I view it kind of similar to, Armstead, except for Armstead's more in his prime than Calais is. And he's a guy that can come in, bring that leadership. He's already out there, doing a podcast, like trying to promote his charity and things like that, knowing that he's going to bring that sort of effort to Jacksonville. So he's already becoming a leader in this community. And I don't even know if he's stepped foot in Jacksonville yet. So that's going to be what he brings to the table. And I think that they've needed that. They had Devon Hamilton last year who had to sit out 10 weeks because of a abscess on his spine, which could have been deadly. And luckily he was able to pull through, and he actually played football last year somehow. But, they needed something more inside because they don't know what they can get from Devon now. Roy Robertson Harris is a guy that they like a lot, but he's probably best served as a rotational player, and then they got rid of Foley Fatukasi. So it just made sense. Bringing Eric Armstead, all of a sudden now you have Eric Armstead, Josh Allen, Trayvon Walker, who I hadn't even mentioned, and then, Devon/Roy Robertson Harris. And I feel like that's a solid defensive line, and it really stabilizes them for years to come.
And, one thing I also want to mention as well is that, Eric Armstead has played in a 3-4 and a 4-3 defense. So he's definitely a fit. No one knows what defense they're going to run yet. I don't know that one because, Nielsen ran a 4-3, I believe, in Atlanta. And
it should be 4 down here in Jacksonville too, but
okay. So it'll be interesting just to see how they utilize Eric Armstead. Do you kind of see them utilizing him kind of in the box in terms of like a defensive tackle or a 3 technique or something of that nature, kind of moving him around a little bit along that defensive line?
Yeah, I think what they're gonna do is probably just play him inside, and then or play him outside potentially at end, rotating with Trayvon and then playing him inside on 3rd downs, and then probably just a variety. I think that he can play end and he can play inside. I think they're gonna do both. But yeah, I think inside more to start, and then move outside when needed, and it just gives them so many options. I think that he's a really good addition.
Yeah, definitely. I'm still kind of mad that the 49ers traded DeForest Buckner and kept him, but then
man.
It's still he's still a good player. He just that I if I had to pick, I'm going to pick Buckner over Armstead.
Any day. Buckner's a better player, but yeah, that combo was deadly. It reminded me of Marcus Stroud and John Henderson when they were in Jacksonville. Just those two, guys you couldn't move, huge bodies. Trent Baalke knew the type of player that he likes, and then he drafted Trayvon Walker, so no surprise.
Definitely. John Henderson, you mentioned him. He is a Nashville, Tennessee native, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yep.
of course, you mentioned him, Josh Allen. No, we're not talking about the Josh Allen, quarterback of the Buffalo Bills. We're talking about the defensive Josh Allen, who just got paid by the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, I don't know why they took so long to do so, but hey, they paid him. And, how
Wait,
big
did
was
they
that
pay
kind
him?
of keeping him there? I believe
Wait,
they
did,
paid
did
him.
I don't think they have yet. Mm-mm.
Oh, they haven't? Oh,
They
okay.
franchise tagged him. But
Got you.
just to go off of that, I mean it's hugely important. I mean they have to keep him. And the fact is, he's a guy that came in with the 9th overall pick in 20, I think it was 2019, or maybe it was the 7th overall pick. Either way, he's been a guy that they've been dependent on for years, and he just hadn't been able to break through. He got 10.5 sacks his rookie season, and basically averaged about 7 unless he was injured, and so it just wasn't a good situation for Josh heading into that final year of his contract, and it paid off. He got 17.5 sacks last year. It's really important for them to keep him, and the biggest issue is right now, obviously, is going to be the market. How do you pay him? Do you know that he's going to be able to produce at that level consistently, since you've only seen it 1 year? Those are the questions that the Jaguars are probably asking themselves, and why they haven't come to an agreement yet. But yeah, they franchise tagged him. He'll be here in Jacksonville regardless. Whether he plays or not is going to be the huge issue that we're going to run up to as we get closer to that July 15th deadline.
Yeah, definitely. I guess I got the cart before the horse. Assuming
it's
they
all
were
right.
going to pay him, but my apologies, everyone listening. But definitely going to be something to monitor, whether he is or isn't there, and definitely we'll be coming back to you to kind of touch on that situation. Another big addition. Well, I wouldn't say it's a big addition in terms of Josh Allen. He was already there, but a big addition to that back end of that defense be Darnell Savage. It's going to be Savage season in Jacksonville. Now he comes down from Green Bay to take over at the safety position. Of course, Jenkins leaves and goes to Seattle. So, what can you just say about what he can potentially bring to the back end of that defense?
Yeah, it's interesting. So when he signed, a lot of people, including myself, speculated, he's replacing Rayshawn Jenkins, and he's going to be a safety, and maybe he'll play down a little bit. Who knows? It depends on how Ryan Nielsen uses his safeties. But what we learned since then, and something that some people speculated on, he's going to be playing nickel with the Jaguars. He's their starting nickel for now. Competing with Antonio Johnson, their rookie from last season. But Doug Peterson told us that at the league meetings a couple of weeks ago that Darnell Savage, they see him as a nickel. He's going in with the ones for now. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see, because his tape out of college was incredible in terms of just his quickness and how he's been able to keep up with those slot receivers. He played a little bit of that at Maryland. So yeah, I do think it's a fit. It's an interesting fit, because it just underscores, I think, the speed and aggressiveness of what Ryan Nielsen sort of wants to have at that nickel position, and then obviously it'll free them up sort of to in the draft, where you're not necessarily taking a rookie to play that nickel spot year one. So if he's a guy that can only play outside, then that's fine. I think most of the time they have versatility nowadays, but if he is a longer player and you want him outside, you don't have to say, oh, well, we can't play him at nickel. So yeah, Darnell Savage brings a lot. The only issue I have is, how is he tackling? I know that was an issue he had in Green Bay. How is he going to be closer to the line of scrimmage, taking on runs, things of that nature? But other than that, I think it was a pretty good addition.
Wow, I guess I'm kind of a little shocked. They're gonna move. They're gonna play him at nickel, and not at safety. It's interesting. That's gonna be interesting to watch.
Yeah, it will be. And Antonio Johnson's probably going to play safety to start out. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. They can interchange. So we'll see how they finalize that in training camp.
I definitely see Savage playing some safety this year, though. I even though I hear what they're telling me, my mind tells me he's going to play some safety this year. It's just my mind tells me that. I'll see it happen on the field, but that's just what my mind tells me. Another thing I just want to mention before we go to commercial break is I noticed where there was an extension handed out to the NFL's or the I would say the AFC South's tackling machine definitely recently. How does that kind of line up with them drafting 2 linebackers the previous year?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, so they extended Foye Oluwakin, and he's a very good player. He led the league in tackles a couple years in a row. I think he led the league last year in solo tackles, and then obviously led the AFC South. Or actually, he might not have led the AFC South because of Zaire out of Indy.
Zaire Franklin.
But either way, yeah, he's one of the best tackling linebackers in the league. He's a leader. He knows how to line up. He knows where to go. He's a guy that was probably one of the most consistent players over the past 2 years. So, yeah, they went ahead and extended him because he was entering, I think, the final year of his contract at a high number. So they wanted to go ahead and get him done. But, yeah, you know what it does? It does underscore that 2022 draft class where they not only traded up for Devin Lloyd in the first round, but they also double dipped and went after Chad Muma early in the third round. And, everybody's speculation at that time once they did it was, okay, well, then that means that, Foye is going to be here for a couple years and then Chad probably takes over afterward, which, financially that would make sense. Who knows skill-wise, maybe Foye would have regressed by now or whatever the case may have been. And to me, this extension underscores the fact that Chad Muma is not a guy that they necessarily believe in long-term, or maybe Devin Lloyd is not a guy they believe in long term, but either way, it is a pretty big indictment, in my opinion, on that draft and on that plan, because not only do you pay a linebacker high price in free agency, but then you double dipped in the draft early at that same position. And usually that's not something that you want to do unless you have a plan. So, this kind of moves that plan around a little bit, in my opinion, but yeah, they had to keep him, I guess, is their logic, and I don't think that they were feeling strongly enough about Chad to move on from Foye just yet.
Yeah, definitely something to watch. Of course, another thing to think about is maybe they trade one of these guys. That's another thought as well. But of course, the last thing I want to go over with you is the draft. But before we do that, we have one more quick commercial break on touring the AFC South.
A shift. A shift is something that happens and changes the dynamics. And that's what happened when Garrett Logistics was born. After 10 years as a sales pro in the logistics world of sporting goods, John Garrett decided to pivot to the world of freight and start a brokerage. So you're saying to yourself, why trust Garrett Logistics? Well, Garrett Logistics helps shippers improve overall workflow, along with increased on-time pickup and delivery percentages. Last-minute loads, multi-drop pickups, and more are part of the services with Garrett Logistics. They're available Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., and Saturday, 8 a.m. to 12 p.m., all times Central Standard Time. So give them a ring at 615-400-8484. That's 615-400-8484, or you can email them at john@garrettlogistics.co or visit their website at garrettlogistics.co. Garrett Logistics, where the motto is, it's not just freight to us, it's your business.
All right, and we are back on touring the AFC South. And before we get out of here, I want to talk a little draft talk with you, Demetrius. Now, the Jacksonville Jaguars have a 17th overall pick this year. And I noticed a particular gentleman from Alabama that has been talked about. That would be cornerback Terrion Arnold. Now, that, goes into what we just talked about in terms of Darnell Savage. You adding another corner. You've got Tyson Campbell on one side. You'd have Arnold on one, and you'd have Savage in the slot. So what do you think about this potential projection in terms of adding another corner, another first-round corner at that, to this team?
Yeah, I think that it makes sense. I think that that's the player. I've done a couple mocks, and I haven't put Terrion Arnold at the first pick yet because that's the consensus. So I was trying to be a little different, go different positions. But yeah, he's a guy that, it seems like he fits everything. As far as character, blows it away. He's a fantastic human. At least seemingly. And then, as far as skill set wise, he's able to play press. He can play zone. He's very technically sound. And, I think it says a lot when you come out of Alabama and you're a starting corner, because Nick Saban, if he's probably hardest on that position than any other on his team, and Arnold actually didn't even start right away. He had to take a back seat a little bit, at Alabama, and then he was able to earn that starting position. So I just think it says a lot, and I think that it would make sense. They have Ronald Darby right now, the Jaguars do, at corner, but he's a veteran journeyman who has gotten injured a lot in his career, and can't necessarily be relied upon too heavily. And then they have to go ahead and sort of figure that position out for the future. Not many players are even under contract as far as corners go over the next couple of years. Tyson Campbell's one of them. They have to figure out if they want to pay him this year, or whatever he does will probably dictate that. So yeah, going Terrion Arnold or Quinion Mitchell or Kool-Aid McKinstry or even Cooper DeJean or any of those corners, that are rated high right now, wouldn't surprise me at all. I think that's honestly their likely position unless somebody else falls. So yeah, that's where I would go to, and I think it makes sense.
Yeah, I want to say something right now too. Keep Cooper DeJean at corner. Do not move that man to safety.
Yeah, I don't know why they're trying to move him to safety.
Well, you kind of know some of it, but yeah, definitely, he would be the first white corner to start in the NFL since Jason Sehorn, if he actually made it to the NFL and actually was playing corner. So that would be interesting.
He can do it.
I've seen this tape, and I mean, he's got skills. He's got skills.
He's a good player.
Yeah, definitely is. But of course, going over to another question I have. Looking at this team, looking at different things that they probably need. I know you know it more than what I would because you're right there. But what specific holes do you think they're trying to fill when it comes to this draft?
Yeah, the funny thing is, as much as Jaguar fans and even us in the media try to, bring down the roster, say, oh man, this roster's not built right, whatever. There's not that many holes. Like if you're looking at it, on paper, they got the corner position filled, a little bit with Ronald Darby. They have, the edge position filled with Trayvon Walker, Josh Allen. They brought in Travis Gibson. These are depth players and guys that won't necessarily, like, you don't want them to necessarily start, but at least they have the depth there. So there's not really many blatant holes. I would say corner is that one if you have to sort of earmark one, and then wide receiver is another one. Wide receiver, I feel like they have a hole, if only because they lost out on Calvin Ridley, and now they weren't saying, oh, we got Gabe Davis, and so Calvin Ridley is a luxury signing. No, the coaching staff and Trent Baalke were like, we need Gabe Davis and Calvin Ridley. Like, this is our plan at wide receiver. And so once they lost out on Calvin, I feel like that boosted the wide receiver need significantly. And so those are the two holes I see right now. Another one potentially is going to be offensive line. Obviously, they have Cam Robinson, Walker Little. Both of those guys are going to be up as far as their contracts are concerned this year. Or after this year. And so you have two tackles that are going to be gone, your swing tackle, your starting left tackle, whichever one you want to say is which. And so that's another position where I feel strongly they have to address. And then guard, Brandon Scher's getting up there in age. He's basically on his last year of his contract. Probably will retire after this year, I unless he really wants to play. And so, you have to upgrade at guard, and then the center position is obviously still an interesting idea with Mitch Morris and Luke Fortner. So yeah, they have holes, and there's places where you can definitely see, you need to fill it. But wide receiver and corner are the two that I'm looking at where you have to address that position early.
Yeah, definitely. Like you mentioned, the offensive line, that definitely could be an issue. But I would also say that that's been something that's been looked at for years in terms of Jacksonville. In terms of the offensive line, there's always a question there. And it seems like, the same kind of questions are there. Now, I know you said there aren't any holes. There aren't very many holes. But, that's something that Mr. Baalke is going to have to address. And, from reading the tea leaves and seeing a few different things, I'm pretty sure of what I've seen that not a lot of people are sure that he's going to make that happen. So
yeah. No, there's definitely a lot of criticism. I mean, and it's rightfully so. If we can just take a little aside, in 2021, their draft was great, right? They had Trevor Lawrence, Travis Etienne, Walker Little, Tyson Campbell. A slew of players that should be in here and starting. Andre Sisco. All these guys have played significant snaps or they started. The issue is Walker Little, a guy like that, might not be here. Andre Sisco and Tyson Campbell are in the final year of their deals, and I know that they haven't even talked with Andre Sisco about an extension. Travis Etienne is a running back. Sadly to say, it seems like those position groups are 5 years and done potentially if they're drafted in the first round, or maybe even 4 years and done if they're drafted anywhere else. So, that draft class is kind of being brought to light now. And then the 2022 draft class, like we talked about, they had Chad Muma. He's not starting. They had Luke Fortner in the third round. He's not starting potentially. Devin Lloyd has struggled. Trayvon came on last year, but you still want to get more out of him. The rest of the class was nothing. And then last year they didn't really do much. So except for Anton Harrison. So I can understand why Jaguar fans are feeling strongly that Trent Baalke's not going to be the guy to be able to bring in the players that they would like, or build the team in the way that they want. So yeah, that definitely is an issue.
Yeah. One last question. Do you believe there's potentially a trade down option available for the Jaguars?
I think there probably will be, but at this point in their build, I don't think that trading down is going to help them. Whoever they can get at 17 is going to be better than the person that they can get wherever else they fall. Most likely, unless they have a guy and he just happens to not be picked. I don't think I would risk it this year. I think that trading down, they've done it. They did it last year. They took that gamble. I don't think that this team can gamble on missing out on a guy. It really would depend. If Terry and Arnold, Mitchell, all the wide receivers are gone, perhaps then you think about it. But for now, I would stand pat or trade up potentially.
All right. Well, we definitely have gotten into the Jaguars, kind of talked about their offseason and talked about the different things that are going on in terms of potential draft picks. But we cannot end the show without a game. 5 questions, 2 answers, and 1 choice. Demetrius Harvey, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. First question. The beach or the city? Which one's the ideal vacation spot for you?
For me, it's the beach. I've always lived near the beach. I think that it's really relaxing. I would definitely choose the beach over the city. The city, for me, growing up in Jacksonville, wasn't necessarily somewhere you went all the time because there's not much to do. So definitely the beach.
All right. Well, if New York City was in that equation, it might be different. But hey,
maybe.
All right. I'm gonna give you 2 Jacksonville corners: Rashawn Mathis or Jalen Ramsey. Which corner are you taking?
Ooh. Mathis was amazing. I grew up watching him, and it seemed like he's always pick 6 the ball almost every game. I would take Jalen Ramsey. Jalen Ramsey was one of my favorite players, like just watching in college, and then for him to be drafted by the Jaguars, I was excited just to see it, locally. And he is a Hall of Fame corner, and so I think that he's definitely the guy I would take.
Yeah, he's also a guy from up here in my neck of the woods, Nashville.
Yep.
All right, let's see. Another one I got for you. The helmets, the half gold, half black helmets, or the solid black helmets. Which one did you like more?
I actually like those 2-tone helmets more than I think other people did. But I get why they didn't. I guess I would have to say the all black, just because I think that there's much more they can do with it. I know that the gold, half black is interesting, but I actually liked. I don't know if you remember this, but the Jaguars in like 2011 or something like that, they had these helmets where it had almost like a teal glimmer to them. So like it was black, but it had like a teal. I thought those were cool. I like seeing the little teal reflections. So if I had to choose, it would probably be that one. But yeah, all black, I guess.
Okay, all right. You've got one movie. You've got one actor to choose from to star in this movie. Denzel Washington or Samuel L. Jackson. Which guy are you taking?
I guess it depends. I guess it depends on the type of movie. I'm gonna go with Denzel. Denzel, man, all of his movies are amazing to me. So I'm going to go with Denzel. I remember watching Man on Fire back in the day. That was amazing. I think he was in John Q. Unless I'm mistaken.
Yep.
Yeah, I love that movie, even though it was sad. Yeah, so Denzel Washington.
Okay. All right. Last one. You got one person to spit a hot 16. You going with Kendrick Lamar or Lil Wayne?
Ooh, Lil Wayne can't get. I love Kendrick. I love Kendrick. But Lil Wayne's he'll kill him. No.
Okay. All right. That's 5 questions, 2 answers, and 1 choice. You are
Mhm.
off the hot seat for this episode, of course, and that we have reached the end of the show. Demetrius, I want to thank you for coming on. Thank you for kind of dropping all the nuggets and knowledge that you have about the Jacksonville Jaguars, their offseason, and their draft. Can you tell everyone where they can find you and what things you're working on next?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter or X at Demetrius82. So spelled just how it sounds, and then also on Jacksonville.com, we have a bunch of content coming out. Obviously, the draft is coming up. I know that not everybody's a Jaguar fan, but if you want to learn a little bit more about an AFC South opponent, you go there. I have stories on everything, so there's not really any other place you need to go. So just go to Jacksonville.com. We'll be doing draft previews, all that kind of stuff in the coming days.
All right. And again, I want to thank you for coming on. Of course, if you don't know, I'm the host of the show, Mike Patton, and you can find me on the artist formerly known as Twitter at Mike Patton82. That's MikePatton 82, the artist formerly known as Twitter, showing props to the artist formerly known as Prince. Of course, you can find me on Instagram and Threads at that's THA, not THE, _general_MP, and you can find Touring the AFC South on all listening platforms at the Spotify, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, you name it. We are there, and we're also on YouTube. Go ahead and subscribe, share. Everyone, hey, I'm bringing this for you. So I want to thank you, everyone, for tuning in to this episode of Touring the AFC South. I'm your host, Mike Patton. We're out.